Welcome to the Office of Undergraduate Research Education Series. Today's presentation is on creating eye-popping research presentations with Adobe, and our speaker is Holly K. Johnson. This is a virtual event and it is being recorded. And we ask you to mute yourself and turn off your camera for the best experience. And if you have questions, please use the chat feature, or you can unmute yourself when invited by the speaker. This is the event evaluation QR code. I'll also put the link in the chat after the presentation starts. We would love for everybody to fill out the forms for this event, but especially the Europe scholars. In order to receive credit for attending this event, you will need to fill this out. The mission for the Office of Undergraduate Research is to facilitate and promote undergraduate student faculty collaborative research and creative works in all disciplines throughout the University of Utah campus. In recognition that excellence requires diversity, we pursue this mission through equitable programming that promotes diverse representation and social justice. And we would like to acknowledge that this land, which is named for the Ute tribe, is the traditional and ancestral homeland of the Shoshone, Paiute, Goshute, and Ute tribes. The University of Utah recognizes and respects the enduring relationship that exists between many indigenous peoples and their traditional homelands. We respect the sovereign relationship between tribes, states, and the federal government, and we affirm the University of Utah's commitment to a partnership with Native nations and urban Indian communities through research, education, and community outreach activities. And now I would like to turn it over to Holly Johnson, the Associate Director of Learning Experience, Innovation, and Outreach.
Great. I'm the Associate Director for Digital Learning Innovation Outreach. And so basically what that entails is I've got an awesome team that supports Adobe and all of the programs, and basically coaching people on design principles, how to create presentations, also learn other tips and tricks. Maybe you're interested in dabbling in Photoshop, Premiere Pro, whatnot. Any of those were available. We have a space up at Keller Village, which is housing right at the base of the Legacy Bridge. And within there, we have the very first Adobe Creative Commons. And so in there, we have students that are working and they are there to help you with any projects you have and any questions you have about technology. So really what I say is it's the Genius Bar, and the geniuses are all of you coming in. So please visit us. You can also follow us on Instagram, and it's at U of U Adobe. And we'll be having a couple events coming up here. So first off, I just want to thank you so much for attending. There's so much to cover, and I'll be sending you, I don't want to inundate you because I also want you guys to play. And so I also have, in part of my research, is the pedagogy of play. So what I love to do is have you dabble in Adobe Express, because just as you're putting all of this time into your research, putting the time into what makes a great presentation is really spending that time to do that. So so what I'll do is I'll share with you, we have a new creative skills badging program. And basically in there, there's a badge. And what that badge does is it's an actual certification coming from Adobe, and that goes on your LinkedIn. And so that's nice because as you know, you're beginning professionals, getting any certifications onto your LinkedIn is really important. And for the creative skills, we look at research as far as what employers are looking for, and creativity and the ability to think creatively and collaboratively is one of the top items that they're looking for. So I'm going to start first off in the chat. I love to see how many of you have used Adobe Express, and formerly it was called Adobe Spark, or any other Adobe programs that you work on. Acrobat Pro, great. Adobe Spark. but you've used Canva. So that's great. So one thing that they say is you're never supposed to mention your competitor's name. However, Adobe Spark came along first before Canva, and Canva saw the success of the power of Adobe Express. There's room for everyone in this. What's great is that because you are a student, faculty, staff at the University of Utah, you have full access to the entire Creative Cloud. And what's exciting is that you get all the premium features that are involved with Adobe Express, which means you have access to all the type and the photographs and all the Premiere functions, and it's free. Plus, it moves seamlessly through the other applications. So if you're using Illustrator, Photoshop, whatnot, so that can be a cost savings. The other thing that we say is it's nice within Adobe, using Adobe through the university, because it is a dual authentication. So that means as you're creating content, whatnot, that is locked down through the university. And so as we look at security and as far as your research, that's proprietary information to you. I want you to decide how you deliver that information. So on that, that's another thing is Canva, you know, if that were to get hacked or anything else, then your images, your research, everything is out there. So that's just something to consider. I don't want to live in the world paranoid, but I also do want you to protect the content that you're creating. So what I'm going to show you is a presentation that was actually created in Express. And there's some pros and cons to this. So this is, and I'll be sharing a list of links, a PDF that I'll be sending to Shelly after this, and that she can share with all of you. And then once again, you're always welcome to connect with me and our student creative consultants. So really the Adobe Creative Commons, so as you can see, and I'm just going to narrate through this because it's a workshop, but I want to just not have you, well, I guess you are just listening to me, but I'm just going to narrate as far as you know, what I'm seeing as the strengths of this, and maybe what are some of the cons, because PowerPoint presentations are successful, but what are those extra things that you can add on? Because it's nice to have tools that you're familiar with, but it's also nice to add on other tools. So this is an Adobe Express. And basically what this is it's called a glide show. This is building a website. What's nice about this is that you get a unique URL to that. So say if you have on your posters, you would like somebody to see more in depth of your research, whatnot, you can add a QR code of what this URL is. The great thing is as you continue to do research, you can go in and continue to refresh this and add in more content. Or if you see that you misspelled a word, you can go in and change that. And then you just republish it. That means the people that have attended a presentation that you have or have looked at your poster, you have the ability to continue adding on, and that URL stays the same. So that's a great bonus. The other thing is that you're able to add in links into Adobe Express. So what they call buttons. And so I want you guys to be able to play. It's a short amount of time. I presented to nurses, graduate students in nursing last week. And I saw the importance of just being able to play, because you have all of these ideas, and I'm just going to throw out a bunch of tools for you. And some of these are also iterations, right? Some of this is just, you know, another version of putting up sticky notes and organizing your story, because what you are doing is organizing a story. So this is, so once again, this is the glide show. So set up the type. You can also add any photos. So if there's a great photos that you can choose from the photo bank, but you can also upload your own. So free, as I was saying, Adobe Creative Cloud is free for every student, faculty, and staff. And so on here is a button. So this one would take you directly to doing Creative Cloud. And then we've got links in here. So to learn about the apps, whatnot. So how to get started. So as far as getting started, logging in, you want to use your unit. And just as I had said, it's locked down through dual authentication. You'll enter your unit, then it will prompt you to go into the university, you'll do the dual authentication, and then you'll be in. So as I had said, there are free templates, graphics, and resources. Sometimes, and I'll show you some of these examples, it's nice to start with the containers. So if you think about cooking and you watch those cooking shows and they have all the individual containers or little and what you fill in it. Sometimes it's nice to have containers to start with, and then you're going to, substitute your own ingredients. We do have this Adobe Creative series that I'll show you. Once again, the first one is, I think, really important. It takes about an hour, and they're engaging videos that are created by the Adobe Education team in San Francisco. And we work closely with them. So that's another thing, is that we have the direct ear to Adobe Education. And our passion is really, how do we get involved in not only architecture planning and the graphic design and the arts, but how do we get ourselves embedded into research that is STEM, community engagement, humanities, health and wellness, whatnot. So we're going to talk through Creative Cloud Express. And so really, you've got the visuals, videos, and a website. So those are super simple, just plug and play. And you can also now, with the AI, you can enhance your photos using AI, which is really interesting. And even for a brainstorming technique, it's interesting to see what comes up. So as I'm doing this, as I'm showing you, one of the things, as far as if I'm presenting, this can get a little, this movement, it doesn't have stops and starts, similar to what, if you're doing a PowerPoint presentation. So I think that could be distracting. So what I would say is, I would actually make some slides in PowerPoint, then I would take those and create an Adobe Express. Why would I do that? If you're out presenting, I think that this can get really clunky, because as you see, it scrolls through your design. And that would be better if you're meeting with someone, to say you're presenting your poster and you have them bring this up. This is a nice way for them, instead of opening a PowerPoint or a PDF, for them to directly engage with your content. So once again, this is how you access your Creative Cloud. So using your unit. And then, as we're saying, is share those on. And then here's our website. And I am showing you, okay, I'm going to close this. So what I'd love to see is, okay, so today's slide. Okay, so now I'm going to jump into Adobe Express. So what I'd like you to do is, everyone, if you can log in, you can follow along, but some of you may want to start discovering. So I'm going to put this in. So this is an active workshop. And at any point, you're welcome to ask questions. I know that we set up the etiquette for you to keep yourself muted, but this is where I'm going to break the rules. You're welcome to turn on your camera and also unmute yourselves if you have questions. But go ahead and log into Express. So I'm going to give you kind of that whistle-stop tour as far as what Express is. So they just launched, it's been Express for about 2 years now, and they just launched a newer version. So what I love about this is the interface is it's just a little bit more streamlined and graphically based. So it's much more easy to go through. So as you have on the left-hand side, you have your home, you have your stuff, which I think is so funny, they call it your stuff. Explore, you can schedule social media posts, whatnot, and you can learn. Now across this is where you can choose what you're creating. What's nice is that it will take the content that you're creating and it will put it into those different ratios that you need, which I think can be very, very helpful. So on here, and then you scroll over here, you can do class project, career, events and clubs. So if we look at career, you can do a resume, a letter, a LinkedIn profile, a presentation, and a web page. So once again, you can do a presentation created in this that would even be just a poster that you would print out. What's nice is what you create, you can download as a PDF. You can also download as a JPEG. So say you're creating graphics, you can download that. So the next thing that I'm going to show you is the web page. So the web page here is what I was showing you. So I'm going to actually go into my stuff and I'm going to show you behind the scenes. So this is the presentation I was just showing you. So what you're going to see is every time I click on something, I can replace that image and it's going to bring up a whole bank of information. So I can put in, say I'm in the sciences and okay, so I'm looking for science. So all of a sudden, just as simple as that phrase, and you can get more specific depending on your research, all of a sudden you have all of these imagery. Some of them are kind of cliche. Some of them can be more gauged to not as sophisticated. Maybe it's something that's more for K through 12. But also you want to think who your audience is. So here you have a great repository of images to choose from. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave this. And then within here, you can see that the way that this was set up, I can change where I want the photo. I can click on this. I can change the focal point. I can do replace. And then I have all of these text boxes that I can go into. And at any point, I can highlight this and I can change if it's a heading 2. So this is really great to go through and be able to add content and change your visuals. So with that said, I'm going to go back and I'm going to go into basically on here. I want to choose, I'm going to choose, I'm going to choose an image or a document. So on here, I'm going to choose a newsletter, a report. So I'm going to do browse template. So on here, I did a flyer. So here's popular templates. And as you can see, some of these templates are geared more towards maybe it's an Etsy shop or it's social media, whatnot. But if you dig a little deeper, there are definitely things that have that are speaking more to the audience that you're looking at, whether it's other researchers, other academics, or potential employers. So on these templates, it's going to show me information graphics, presentations, all of these. So if I do view all, I can look through here and say, oh, what kind of flavor am I interested in, or persona am I interested in? Psychology. So if I click on that, all of a sudden I have a presentation. Now what you can see is if I click up here, this is the scale. So if I want to zoom in much closer, I can zoom in or I can zoom out. And then on here, I can go ahead and this is going to show me all the pages that are set up. So similar to when you go into a PowerPoint or a keynote, whatnot, they have pages that you can create. So if I'm looking at this, it's like, oh, I like this, you know, think about these as just those containers, like a spice, like your spices out, because you can go in here and I'm going to double click on this. I can go in here. And as soon as I click on it, all of these options turn up on the left-hand side. So I can change the typeface. I can change. So as you can see, I think there's over, let me see, 1,000 or more different typefaces that you can use, which is really nice because that can be quite daunting. And then you have all those other type commands that you can do. And if I go in, and on this, as you can see, I can't change. These would be the different layers that are on the right-hand side. So that's really nice to be able and just change those. And then once again, I can just click in that box and I can change what that is. So think about these templates as areas that you can just start out from and then replace your content. So on here, there's also a new feature where you can remove background. So I've clicked on that photo and now it's doing its AI, and it's pretty amazing right now as far as the AI, as far as really being able to clip these things pretty closely. I would say with some of this AI, when you're removing the background, is if you're showing it digitally, it works. If you're doing a printout, I would do a test print, because not always it's actually doing the right as far as clipping it out. And if you add another color behind, sometimes it's showing that layer. So I would just be cautious when you're working with the AI function. So now, oh, I didn't want to do that. Here's your undo button. I can undo that. And then,
Holly, sorry, are you working in presentation right now or flyer?
right now I'm working in a presentation. Yes.
Okay. And would you actually use this to present? Because at one other point you mentioned that you work in PowerPoint and then move things over, or what do you mean?
Yeah. So what I've done is, this is a way if you wanted to create a presentation that you would actually show. This presentation is different from the Glide Show or the website that I was showing you. This would be a regular presentation that you would have 4 slides. So basically your download, you would be able to do download all pages, and this is where you could save them as a PDF or as a JPEG. So if you wanted to present that way. So
if you were presenting in a class or a conference or something, would you present it as a PD, like a PDF, or I guess you can't convert this to a PowerPoint, right?
You know what? There is a new plugin that you can actually, that they just released, because they just released new versions of this, and there is a PowerPoint plugin. So I do have that on my list of links. That's a new, and I actually just found that when I was going through this. I'm like, oh, that's brand new. So
and can you present directly here like you can from, I think Canva, you can present directly from Canva, right?
Yeah. So, and in Canva, this is what I should know. Can you, when you present in Canva, are you presenting, does it look like this, or does it,
I've personally never used it, but I've had students use it and it looks like a proper PowerPoint.
Okay, it does. So it doesn't do the scrolling like the Glide Show.
No. It goes, you advance to the next slide.
Yeah. Yeah. So on this one, you would import. So if I wanted to share this, I could, once again, just backtracking. This is nice if you're doing a group presentation, because you can invite collaborators now. Now they would need to be cool. University of Utah students or faculty staff. You would add in the unit. And then when I do publish to the web, this is one where I would publish a link to this. So let's see what that, we'll see what that does. Are there other questions as far as what you all want to, what you're thinking about creating? Okay, so I'm going to copy that link. There you go. So actually now it is presenting. So it gave me a website link, and now I'm actually presenting the slides. So this would be more of a traditional slideshow versus that Glide Show that I was showing in the website. But what's really great is that is giving you a unique URL. So it's depending on who your audience is. I think this is a really great. So thank you for asking that. So once again, you have this, you could easily create a QR code for this to then link. So that's great. Thank you. Great question. Are there other questions? And I'll show you, say, an information graphic, because what I'm looking, what I think is helpful is for you to add, it's not one or the other. It's here's a bunch of tools, and add what makes the most sense for you and your audience. So if I go back to templates and I want to do an information graphic. So on the information graphic, once again, think about these as different containers. So it's like, oh, I'm seeing everything, sleep traditions, travel habits. So let's just say DNA. Oh, so now there are some things that are more specific to my topic area. So what I can see is, oh, these are some nice containers to put my research in. And it's once again, helping you really distill down that story that you want to tell. So if I open this, it's like, oh, you know, I can see that these are the 3 things. I can change these photographs. So I'm going to go ahead and start a new project. Now, the nice thing is that as soon as you open these, sometimes you want to do iterations. So I would also go up here and go ahead and name it. So this is going to be my DNA infographic 1, let's say version 1. And that just helps you be able to control how many versions you have, whatnot, and define things. So as you can see, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to zoom in. Go. Zoom in a little bit more. It's not cooperating with me. Okay. So on here, once again, as I look at this, every box I check on, I can change all this information. So once again, maybe you have content where you have 3 bullet point items and it's not with DNA, but yet now you have that parking lot for the information that you have. So say on this duck, I want to go ahead and once again, I can do remove the background if I feel like that's a more, so as you can see, the AI isn't very good, even though you can't a duck on water. But I'm going to go ahead and store that. I can also crop it. So I can look at different ways of cropping it. So if I'm changing the size, I can also do opacity. Now, if you're printing, what you want to be careful of is things that are on the web, always, as far as their resolution, whatnot, they'll end up working with opacities. So just as the AI, when you go to print things, that can be a disconnect. So you always want to do a test print, even if it's just doing a test print on an 8.5 by 11, because I know that you all have those large posters. So I would always encourage doing a test print. So if I go over here, once again, I choose these text blocks. I can go in and I can change these different fonts. Now, one thing when we talk about fonts is, and this is where I'd like to promote that creative skills badge, which I'll show you in a couple minutes. What's important about that is that's going to step you through all of the content as far as fonts and colors and all of that rich content that is really valuable for you to spend that time learning, because then that, you don't want, you have all this research that you're working on. You want to spend that little extra time is making sure that you've got the polish on that and really understand the presentation basics. And I kind of skipped around, sorry about that. So as you can see, there's lots of changes. Once again, it's like, oh, I didn't like that. I can do undo. So as you can see here, I can also, these are all different layers. So on here, let's just say that this icon, and this is really great for brainstorming. So on this icon, as you can see, these are all little individual elements that I added to this. So those are all little icons, and I can change the direction of it or the order of it. So all of a sudden now I've lost this background. So I want that to be underneath. So the same thing with this, if I drop this down, all of a sudden that disappears. So this is where you can work on the order as far as, so just think about as you're cutting out things, just different pieces. So this can be really helpful. As far as the background, this is an image. If I hit on this little image right here, it says replace. So all of a sudden I have, let's say, blue backgrounds. So on here, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I want something a little bit more sophisticated where there's more of a gradient. So I can go ahead and I can change a gradient and I can try different. So as you can see, it's not showing very well as far as in the combination. But you can also go in and change the fill. So on these rectangles, whatnot, I can change the fill, and I can change different fills. So now, as you see, I've just changed the fill color for this. So, you know, a rule of thumb is really keep your presentations. Really, you shouldn't have more than 2 or 3 typefaces. That's a good rule of thumb. Another one that you'll go through in the Creative Skills badge is really looking at your colors and defining what a palette is for that. So other questions that you might have, please feel free to unmute yourself or show your camera and start to ask some questions of what you'd like to see and what you're thinking about.
Holly, I'll ask a question.
Okay.
So I know a lot of students, and also as a faculty member, I do poster presentations for conferences. Is this the best place to start? And then, you know, yes, if you have, and are there templates that are really tailored to research presentations with kind of your backgrounds, methods, results, discussion or conclusion, and also then how do you set it up then in the appropriate size?
Yeah, so let me go ahead and show you that. So let's just say that this was let me go in and let me go ahead and do research. So if I start to look at research photos, I'm going to go over here and do view all. So as you can see, these are pretty basic. These are not necessarily the large academic research. These are more, you know, ingredients, whatnot, as far as what you want to do. However, there could be sections of this, say if you wanted to do data graphs, whatnot, you can do sections and then you can formulate those onto one big master page. So if we were to do, so I want to do something from scratch. So on here, I have the ability to do standard sizes. And so on here, I want to do a poster. Here we go, custom size. And let's just change this to inches. Oh, 20, okay. So let's just do 17, 20. So now I have the size of what I need for this poster, for instance. Within that, I can go ahead and say I've created content. So I can go back into my stuff and say, here is a presentation on, I want to add this as an image. So now I've added this as an image and I can resize it. And so if you start to think about different ways of, you know, displaying your information, really following that grid and adding in different content. So on here, I want to add another image. I want to add okay, that's, sorry, all of a sudden I'm like, okay, so on my stuff, I have this image. So I'm going to add as an image, or I could add as a page. I'm going to add this as an image. So basically what you can do is you can go in and build those different and say that these are not, obviously they're in different styles, but you can create separate graphic elements and then arrange those onto your poster size. What can be nice about this is that you can align things. Let's say I'm going to add as an image. it's really easy to resize your blocks. So if you have a block of text, whatnot, you can do this. Now, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I need to recrop this. So on here, I can do crop image, can crop this down.
Yeah, I had a question also just about templates. So Jude put a reference in. I'm assuming those are, Jude, are those PowerPoint templates?
Yes, they are. So on the website, you can click on the templates and it'll download the PowerPoint with all of the templates that we have ready to go. That's generally what we have students use when printing poster presentations for our undergraduate research symposia. So if it's just good to have that as a reference if you're making graphics in Adobe Express, just to make sure that the sizing is going to be the as close as possible, and you're going to have as good a quality of an image as you'd like. So when it prints out, it looks good.
So is there a possibility then of creating a template within Adobe Express?
We could actually do that. Yeah, absolutely. Now, Jude and Shelley, as you went through Adobe Express and you know, because sometimes it's just a combination of different elements, how did you see, or what did you respond to from all the posters and as far as all the research that you've seen? What are different ways that make sense for, are there areas that make sense for using Adobe Express as making things easier for doing your research?
Yeah, Holly, can it make a project that's 48 by 36?
You know what? I just tested the limit and it's not. So
yeah, I think you could make one in those dimensions and then blow it up to print it.
Yeah. Well,
and that's what you can do.
Yeah, if you had it in the right dimensions, the beauty of when you save it, you would want to save things as a PDF. And then when you go to the printer, have them put it in that size. So it looks like the limit right now is 20 is the largest on either end. So what I would do is I would add in a smaller size. If you add it to a PDF, it basically will maintain the text, the resolution and the resolution of the photos. Sean, what is your question?
Hi, hold on. Cool. Hi, yeah, so I had a question. Is there a way, or is there like a way you can tell when a presentation is it pops too much, so that the things that you're saying are like maybe less important than the poster?
Yeah.
Like, is there like a marker, you know?
Yeah. So, are you talking about visual hierarchy, or as far as with your research, what do you emphasize? Is that what you're thinking?
I'm more thinking about like the visual hierarchy. Like, to what point can you go where the poster will be so vibrant, like image-wise, that whatever you say takes away from whatever you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think keeping it simple and keeping photos to, you know, if you define, it's almost like you're creating a brand, right? So if you define that you're going to use more photographic imagery and then adding in text, then that will work. All of a sudden, this becomes a disconnect right here, right? Now I've gone to this graphic. So it's really defining what that style is that you want to go after, so that you're really looking at it in a unified way. I think another place to look at is, as far as thinking about arrangements, is even in magazines, right? Or even, you know, even the way they templatize things in a newspaper or a research journal, making sure that you have white space that your eye can move around. I would also be very, and this is in some of the points that I have, is also looking at color blindness. There is an app called CV Simulator, and I'll be putting that in. What's nice about that is you can just take a photo and it shows you 3 types of color blindness. And that really helps indicate, like, if your colors are too close in value, right? And it's almost like I've had students, when I was teaching in information graphics, is print everything in black and white, because then you can see if everything is of the same value or what's that contrast level, right? And so sometimes that CV simulator is really helpful just in being able to stand back from your presentation. And so I would say that is a really helpful indicator for you. And so, you know, selecting the right icons. So if I go over here and I select, I want to I want to add, okay, on here, let's see, search, and I want to do icons. So what's nice is on here, actually elements. So if I go into elements right here, I can see all sorts of different icons. Now, as you start to look at this, you start to see that all of these are not very related, right? All of a sudden you have something that's photographic, you have something that's super graphic. So what I would look through is making sure that you have graphics that have a similar stroke, you know, or an outline on them, or if you have things that are colored, really making sure that you almost have a suite of elements of branding, right? And so in here, if I just look at, I can do shapes. Oh, that was 2. So let me just do, and I'm just using DNA because that was a, so once again, here are all the different DNA. So I would say, you know, choosing who your audience is, right? This might be more of a K through 12, really simplistic. I'm going to undo that. Or maybe there's a background here. Now, as you start to see what I've created, it's like, oh my gosh, there's too much noise. So I would say, you know, really developing a hierarchy. This one isn't working, but you know, where is it that I want to add this? And almost thinking about it in some ways as a, you know, a magazine layout, right? As far as where you put your type content, whatnot. But as far as images, it's really important for you to be looking at what is that style that you have. So making sure that you have icons that are of similar weight, that you develop a color palette. I'm just going to skip over to this. This is one of the courses that I highly suggest for you all to do because there was too much. I tried to do this in nursing last week and we had 90 minutes and I was like, oh my gosh, we didn't even cover it. Let me put this into the chat. Trying to find the chat on here. Okay. I can't find the chat. Let me just show you this. So these are the creative skills badges. What's awesome about these is this is where you will receive a badge. On here, you get your course overview. So it's really nice.
In the modern workplace, presentations are everywhere. Customer meetings, on how to create and deliver presentation.
So this is all created by Brian Johnsrud. He actually joined Adobe from Khan Academy right when COVID hit. So this was in some ways, a collaborative idea with them because we ran a course during COVID called Creative Communicator. So really looking at the need for how students, faculty, and staff can go through and create presentations. So as you go through this series, as you can see, there is style and design. And so why style and design? Design principles. It takes you through all of these different, setting a tone through colors and fonts. So Ashan, I really suggest going through this because it really helps set the stage for setting basically the brand. And that sounds really commercialized, but you really are presenting a brand of your research. You know, your audience is setting your brand, whatnot. So you go through all of these lessons, and basically what it is just watching these 3-minute videos.
Something that really makes your presentation stand out is your font choice and color palette. Creative Cloud Express offers users access to
15,000 fonts. So that's pretty amazing. So I would suggest that that's a really great place for all of you to go to. It's worth the hour and so, and I think it's great for you to also show on your LinkedIn that you are well-versed in doing presentations. I think that's the number one thing that we heard from people doing internships, whatnot, is that at the end of your internship, you'll do a presentation. And a lot of students weren't aware that they were going to do a presentation from their internship. So I think having these are tools in your back pocket that I think are really important for you to have regardless of your discipline. So does that help you, Ashan, kind of frame that?
Yeah, definitely. That was very thorough.
Okay.
Just to clarify, some of the things you said, try printing it in black and white and using the color blend settings as well.
Yes.
Leaving some space.
Yes.
Going through these courses, and they have good advice.
Yes.
And am I missing anything, or was that pretty much?
Really, it's also the power of information graphics, and it will go through that in here in this series. Information graphics are more powerful than words. So it is nice to have some verbiage next to it, but it's amazing how powerful just showing information graphics are, for really being able to say more without having to read. We all take, you get those journals that are just pages and pages. How do you sum it up into one information graphic? So that's another way that you can use Express to make an information graphic. And once again, I'm not saying don't do PowerPoint, don't do this, but what are those extra tools? And I think what's helpful about Adobe Express is you have this ability to, maybe you're doing it in PowerPoint, maybe you're doing your poster, but what are those ingredients that you have within that you can then make a web page, right? So then you have a QR code. And as I was going through the presentations last year, that was the one thing, people were standing by these incredible posters and whatnot, but how great if you added a QR code to your information, and within that QR code, it took you to this Adobe Express, and then you had videos of showing, how you did your experiment, how something works, maybe it's a new IV that you have. You can put that in there, and then all of a sudden you have you're the person that's there, you're all of a sudden having a conversation, and they're getting their phone and they're looking through stuff. So I think that could be another way for a great interactive dialogue. And then you all of a sudden have a unique URL. The beauty of that is that you have counts, you have viewership as far as how many people clicked on that count. So even though it's not strong data, obviously people can go in and recheck it. It is nice after you present at a conference to see how many people have gone back in. That's something that you don't get to see if you have a PDF or whatnot that you shared, but getting that feedback can be really helpful. Anyone
else? That was really helpful.
Oh, good. And there's so much to cover, and I know we're almost at time. And so I was trying to see how I could condense everything in. I have a really great list of references for all of you that I will give to Shelly so she could share that out. Also, please know that you can contact me, and you can also, and I can put you in touch with our Adobe Creative consultants. What I was really excited about in talking with Shelly and Jude and the team is how can we even work individually with you, or even as a group, as we look at each other, as we look at your research, because sometimes that makes it much nicer and more where we can have a question and answer. So we'd be happy to set up a time where we're looking at people's research, and sometimes that hands-on approach can be really helpful for everyone. So if you all want to get together again, I'd be very open to that, because that helps us in building examples that we can show. So say when we're in Adobe Express, that we actually have examples that we've worked on with you. So think about us as that's what our students are, creative consultants, right? You have the Learning Center, we're the Creativity Center. So we're more than happy to help with that. Jude, do you have any closing remarks as far as how you see that Adobe Express can be helpful in doing these research posters, or even Melissa, as you're looking at this and as you've seen research posters?
Yeah, I'll just say, Holly, I think you're exactly right. It's like having a set of tools at your disposal, because there might be, some things that you're generating in Excel, for example,
yeah.
and then some things. What I love here is sort of looking at different sort of infographic-y type of things that I assume then could be exported as a JPEG and put into a poster.
Exactly.
I think it's I would imagine hard to start with a poster on here without having a good template. I have kind of all these different versions of PowerPoint templates for research posters that I share with students and use myself, and having a place where you to start
yes,
is important. So if that doesn't exist already, I don't think I'd send a student to do their poster in Adobe without having a good template and knowing it's going to print properly. I mean, I mean, it's true. I agree. You can export to PDF, and as long as it's scaled, you can blow it up. But there's I've always experienced a little risk from that.
Yeah.
So yeah, but really it's about like having all these different tools at your disposal. And I'm just kind of trying to think for myself how to tap into some of this a little bit more on my research team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would love to even have another information session with you, Melissa, and just sit down and thinking about this, because there isn't a one size fits all. Even the deeper cut is not deeper cut, but the more advanced is using InDesign, right? That's a publishing tool. That can be really daunting, but if you're publishing an article or whatnot, that can be awesome. Also Adobe Illustrator. But the thing is that what's important are what are those simple tools at your hands, you know, and it's not just one thing. And I think you're right. I think utilizing that template that OUR has, and then from there, what are those different ingredients? So maybe it is creating an information graphic in this. And, you know, and also I would say for students and for anyone, it's a really helpful brainstorming tool, right? When you just type in icons and you can start to see how many different versions of what DNA looks like, it starts your wheel turning as far as, oh, you know, what are the different styles, whatnot. And so I think that even using it as a brainstorming mechanism can be really interesting, and you know, putting in those choice words and like, oh, that's not what it means. But so I also think about it as a scaffolding. Like this can be great for iterations and for sharing those, and for people working on those together and then doing your final poster. Because I don't think that and I do have to say that PowerPoint has become really, really robust, and I don't want to throw that out. But you know, here are these other tools, and I think if anything, using the QR code and creating that website, that web page is really interactive, so that you have somebody that you can hand an iPad to them, whatnot, and they can start looking at that.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, in the last few years, the sort of trend has been like having very minimal information on your poster, kind of the key takeaway with a QR code,
right?
You know, some visuals to kind of stimulate conversation, because
right.
people don't have the bandwidth to go around and like read every poster.
Right.
You go to the posters that have the least content, because you're more like, you can just engage with them a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree. And then that's the nice thing is when you create this web page, you can also, there's also an Adobe portfolio where you can put all your different research so that you can have people going to one place. So I would love to even work with you and some of your colleagues, Melissa, and any of the students that are on here, as far as really refining this, because this is a new tool, and you know, I can tell you how to do it from a graphic design, but my excitement is how do we get into these other fields? And so having these conversations to just really put together best practices is also helpful for us to relay back to the Adobe education team, right? And so, and so as far as being a research one, you know, to be able to show those visual basics, that's really important for us in communication. So using those tools is that creative spark, I think is really important. So yeah, so I'll be reaching out to you, and then we'll send the slew of references, but I also really encourage everyone to do that creative skills badge. There's also one for social media, which can be helpful even as you promote a project that you have, or maybe you're in a club, whatnot. And then there's also one on resumes and LinkedIn. So, and they're continuing to build those. Those are specific. We were one of the first universities to be piloting this. So that's an exciting opportunity for us. And it's great for students to start adding things to their LinkedIn, right? It's kind of daunting when you're starting out. It's like, I have nothing to add, but to start, you know, having these opportunities to do badges, whatnot, I think can be really helpful. So, yes, go ahead and send me an email. And there's another Holly Johnson on campus. So you always have to make sure you get my middle initial in there. Yeah, go ahead and contact me. And then what we'll do is we'll have a student also work with you. And we have that space in CalArt. I also have an office in the faculty center because we can meet down there. But this is how it starts. So I just really appreciate all of you spending this time. There's a lot to cover, and you never know how much to get in, but I appreciate everybody's comments and joining me for this.
Thank you very much, Holly, for presenting for our OUR education series. I just want to remind everybody about the evaluation form. I just put the link in the chat. If you're a UROP scholar, please fill this out in order to get credit for attending.